Hello there, sun chasers and soilless innovators. Welcome back to Hydroponics Daily. I'm Dr. Russell Sharp, and today we're stepping out from under the LEDs and into the light, the natural kind. Yep, we're talking about sunlight, the original grow light. If you're running a greenhouse or a polytunnel setup, the sun is your best friend. And look, like any good friendship, it takes little work to keep it well balanced. And so we're going to talk about all the intricacies of growing with the sunlight. If you're not an indoor grower, if you grow during the summer or even during the winter, then it's important to understand as much as you can about how to optimize a sunlit grow. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about geography, shading, and all things like that. First benefit of sunlight is obviously it's free. So it's been around for, billions of years, and its plants have evolved to optimize for growing under sunlight. So unlike certain synthetic artificial sources, I should say, that emphasize certain wavelengths, sunlight gives you the whole spectrum, the whole enchilada: UVA, UVB, visible spectrum, infrared. That means that your plants get every photon they need for photosynthesis, for photomorphogenesis, and flavor development. Sunlight also has penetration power. It can reach deep into the plant canopies, especially in open and well-pruned systems. And obviously, it's got the ultimate uniformity compared to any grow light. It's always uniform per square meter, as long as you've not got anything interrupting it or shading it. The sun is also photoperiodic, so you have to factor that into your growing conditions. So if you are near the equator, then there's not much photoperiodic. It's going to be roughly around 12 hours day, 12 hours night. Whereas if you're up in Alaska or northern Scotland, you're going to have extremes of short days in the winter and extremely long days in the summer. That also makes it great from a pure photosynthetic period during the summer, and that's why a lot of the giant vegetable growers are based in northeast England or Alaska or the northern states of the US, because when the going is good in the summertime, you can get lots of good photosynthesis, but not much heat stress. Where you look at where most of the greenhouses and polytunnels where they grow naturally are located without any supplementary lighting, it's going to be Spain, south of Spain, Almeria, all around the Mediterranean, so Morocco, Italy, places like that. They don't use any supplementary lighting. You come to Northern Europe, you have supplementary lighting. And then where you really need loads of natural light is cut flower production. And you'll find that most cut flowers are grown in certain countries. And they'd be Kenya, Ecuador, and I think it is in Kunming in China, in Yunnan province. And these places have got very high elevations, long, but they are warm and lots of light. So Kenya, Ecuador, and Yunnan, and especially around Kunming, those are the centers for cut flower production, because you're not getting any cloudy days. You're getting high levels of intense sunlight. So that's something to consider. No need for grow lights there. Now, some plants don't like extremely high sunlight levels, and for them, you might need to shade your plants. And you can use shade cloths that reflect the light, that have either black on the inside and then silver aluminium on the outside. And they have different ranges of, you can get 30% shade, 50% shade. And these shade cloths you can move on to the polytunnel, the greenhouse, and you can move them off. You can move them off manually, or you can have automatic shades that move either when you press a button or when the light intensity triggers them. So they're the best option. Whitewashing compounds you can put on to temporarily give you shading during the summer, but these are not as good because they stain the glass. So in the winter, you'll get less light coming through because you've got that whitewash shade, even though they're supposed to wash off. And they just will deteriorate the efficiency of the horticultural glass they're applied to. They are good if you don't want people looking into your greenhouse, though. So they're an option in those sorts of situations where you don't want people peeping in. Never site a greenhouse or a polytunnel under trees or canopies, thinking that you're going to get shade from that way, because as we talked about before, light that's penetrated through a leaf is very high in far red. So all your plants would get stretched if you were using natural foliage as a shading material. So don't do that. A few tips for getting the most out of your sunlight grow. First of all is monitor your light levels. If you've got a light meter or you've got a grow shop who's got one, or you let you borrow one or buy one, then look at your light levels, see how they compare to indoor growing, and maybe supplement them with some artificial lighting, maybe a sodium lamp if you're in greenhouse, or a strip LED would be a good option. Plan for the seasonality. Look at the light levels, see how they change through the year. You can find this on the internet. Maybe plan for shading, plan for LEDs in the winter, plan for heating, but crucially look at the photoperiod in your areas. If you're growing a photoperiodic crop and you start it in April and it's a short day plant that flowers under short days, your plants could be in veg for a very long time, getting very big. So you might want to look at an auto-flowering, non-photoperiodic variety if you're growing early on in the season. Think about, if you're a really big grow, then you would look at smart shading, things like that. So if they automatically came on, you can get shading for photoperiodic plants so that they're completely encapsulated in the summer. So they trick them into short days. However, these are expensive systems to have a greenhouse that automatically shades during the evening and then opens in the morning. And you'd have to, even if it wasn't automatic, you'd still have to pay someone to do that or do it yourself. So it's a lot of time, and you could cook your plants if you're not careful. The temperature inside shading enclosure can get very, very high. I've done it before on rhododendrons, and it can go up to like 50 degrees Celsius if you weren't careful, because you have to completely enclose the plants, because only a small amount of light getting in there and the plants will just just sense the day length. So think about that. Think about the orientation of your greenhouse and your polytunnel. You want greenhouses to face south in the northern hemisphere to capture the most amount of sun, but that might not be the best option. Think about the wind and things like that. So you have to factor in all sorts of things when you site a greenhouse. Okay. Then the other thing to consider is that you get a fair amount of far red light in the evening, sunset, naturally as the sun sets, and that the level increases. And it's thought this is one of the reasons why sunlit grown plants produce better crops. Also, if you're growing it outdoors or in a greenhouse, you've got more room for maneuverability, and there's a lot of varieties that are not as well cultivated. They grow taller in some crops or take longer to flower, and there supplementing sunlight with side lighting is also thought to be good, because the plants can grow much taller, just like tomatoes. And so that's something to consider as well, supplementing sunlight with side lighting. And then a lot of the flower buds that are at the bottom of the plant will develop into much better flowers and potentially fruits. You'll get better ripening, better trichome production, bigger and bigger produce. So that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Sunlight. Until next time, stay cool, stay green. And remember, when it comes to hydroponics, the sky is literally the limit. Thank you very much for listening, and see you again tomorrow.